in many, many, many countries around the world. 135 women and girls subjected to female genital mutilation. Hundreds of millions forced to shroud themselves in hijabs and burqas, niqabs and so on, because of, in many cases, religious imperative and pressure. We see a whole system of gender apartheid existing in so many countries where women can't do things that men can do, where women are segregated and treated separately. And the driving force in nearly all these cases is organised religion. You know, that is a total and utter disgrace. That people who claim to stand for love and compassion, who claim to talk about, you know, the human spirit and an inclusive world, a common humanity, can treat other people because of their gender in this way. Likewise, today in 80 countries, homosexuality is still totally illegal, with penalties ranging from a few years imprisonment right up to life imprisonment. More than half of those countries are members of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth, which stands for democracy, human rights, personal freedom, equality and non-discrimination. More than half of all Commonwealth countries still criminalise homosexuality in all circumstances. 6 of these countries have life imprisonment, countries like Uganda, Pakistan, Tanzania and Guyana. And 2 of them, in parts of these 2 Commonwealth countries, Pakistan and Nigeria, LGBT people and women who have sex outside of marriage can be put to death. You know, that is an absolute appalling indictment of the Commonwealth, that the leadership has failed to act against these rogue states who are persecuting fellow citizens. And again, so often the driving force, the motor, the pressure for this oppression comes from organised religion within these countries. And I mentioned, you know, the persecution of minority faiths. It's extraordinary the degree to which faith organisations are not only willing to attack secularists and humanists and atheists, but also to fellow co-religionists with whom they disagree. And we in this country have witnessed the bane of sectarian religion in the north of Ireland and in parts of Scotland. We've seen the divisiveness, we've seen the damage, the human rights violations that have followed. But of course, in many other parts of the world, such persecutions of minority faiths continue at great pace. In Iran, for example, a Shia Muslim-dominated state, Sunni Muslims are terribly persecuted. And in provinces like Sistan and Balochistan, predominantly a Sunni province, we have seen the bulldozing of mosques, the arrest and torture of Sunni theologians and students. This is what you end up with when you do not have the separation between religion and the state. Likewise, of course, in Bahrain right now, with the terrible human rights abuses and repression that's happening there, which the Western countries, although they speak out against Syria, and although they spoke out previously against the oppression in Egypt and Tunisia, why aren't we hearing similar outcries against the tyranny in Bahrain, where a Sunni-dominated minority are persecuting the Shia majority? Again, a classic example of what happens when religion is enshrined as part of the state. Of course, here in Britain, now we are gripped with our state church now facing another big crisis of succession with the decision of Rowan Williams to step down as Archbishop of Canterbury. I knew Rowan Williams before he became Archbishop. In fact, long before he became Archbishop. And he was broadly a liberal, progressive theologian. On women's rights and the rights of LGBT people, he was on our side. But when he became Archbishop, that man did a complete turn. He became a prisoner of the Lambeth Palace Mafia, installed by George Carey to make sure that his successor would be nobbled and tied. And Rowan Williams ended up colluding with some of the most vicious fundamentalist theologians around the world. A great personal tragedy for him, because he has not been true to his own conscience. He has put high office before moral values, and once again it shows the malevolent influence of organised religion, not just on society as a whole, but on individuals as well. When it comes to the contenders to replace Rowan Williams, I think it's pretty depressing. Pretty depressing because all of them are conservatives and evangelicals. All the ones in alleged contention are conservatives and evangelicals. But perhaps it may be a blessing in disguise, because perhaps it will expose the truth, the reality about what's really going on. When Rowan Williams was in charge, people would at least think, well, there was, underneath it all, a liberal progressive person at the top. You know, we have someone like Richard Charteris or John Sentamu take over, it'll be very clear where the church really stands. Their stance on a whole range of issues has been on the wrong side of humanitarian values. And of course, we have the ongoing problem that religious organisations in this country are still exempt, albeit in qualified, limited ways, from the equality laws. You know, the big battle to get equal rights enshrined in law has ended up under a Labour government, I'm sad to say, with exemptions being written into all these laws that allow religious organisations in certain circumstances to discriminate against others. Yeah, we've ended up with a raft of very noble, well-intended and positive equality laws which have written into them certain narrow, limited, but nevertheless exemptions from the provisions in those legislations. And yet again it shows how religious privilege, even in our country, in our ostensibly democratic, advanced nation, even in our country, religion still gets privileged status. And the National Secular Society and many others, like all of you, want to see a society where religion has its place, but has no special rights, no special privileges, where religion is subjected to the same laws, the same responsibilities and rights as everyone else. We've also seen negative moves in terms of sex and relationship education in schools. You know, we were making progress to ensure that all young kids get value judgment removed and get objective, factual information about sex and relationships. But under the current government, we've now seen that faith organisations and religious schools are allowed to teach sex and relationship education, which includes their own particular faith perspective, which in many cases regards homosexuality, for example, as unnatural, abnormal, sinful, immoral, and some would like criminal. So, you know, we do have a battle on our hands here, still in Britain. The battle is not yet won. And that battle must continue. The National Secular Society will be there, and with your support, it will continue the fight and make sure that liberal, secular, humanist values are at the forefront of public debate. We will win. We will win because we have reason on our side. We have scientific knowledge and understanding. We have a rational, humanistic perspective. We have the values of universal human rights, and those will ultimately triumph. You know, no injustice, no privilege, no special rights for religion will remain forever. It's sad that we are still fighting the battles of the Enlightenment all these hundreds of years later, but we are fighting them, and we will win. We will win because justice, freedom, liberty, and reason are on our side. So, my thanks to all of you for the magnificent work that you are doing in your different ways. Together, cumulatively and collectively, we are moving to a world where religious obscurantism, prejudice, discrimination, and ignorance is being challenged, and long may that battle continue. Thank you.